The glittering world of high fashion has always been a place where public personas are meticulously crafted, where every step on a runway and every gaze into a camera lens is designed to convey an absolute sense of effortless perfection. For years, the global cultural landscape has been fascinated by the figures who inhabit this elite sphere, viewing them not just as models or muses, but as the living embodiments of modern aspiration, style, and contemporary cultural values. We see them on giant billboards in the heart of the world's most iconic fashion capitals. We watch them glide across European catwalks in garments that cost more than an average family's annual income. And we read their carefully curated interviews in glossed publications that dictate the tastes of millions. Yet, beneath the surface of this hyper-visible, heavily filtered existence lies a much more complex reality where the demands of celebrity culture collide head-on with the messy, unpredictable nature of real human relationships. It is in this unseen space far removed from the flashing lights of the paparazzi and the meticulously organized guest lists of the Met Gala that true personal identity is forged and tested against the relentless currents of public scrutiny. The public often forgets that behind the flawless makeup, the designer wardrobes, and the glamorous international travel itineraries, these cultural icons are distinct human beings who must navigate the exact same fundamental dilemmas that define the human condition for everyone else. They must choose who to trust, how to build their lives, and most importantly, how to reconcile the deeply held personal beliefs they project to the world with the intimate realities of the families they choose to join. This delicate balance becomes infinitely more precarious when an individual's private life unexpectedly intersects with some of the most visible, influential, and intensely debated circles of power in modern global society. When a figure celebrated for embodying modern, progressive, and forward-looking ideals decides to bind their life to a dynasty that represents an entirely different cultural and societal architecture, the resulting friction creates a narrative that captures the imagination of the public and refuses to let go. It raises profound, uncomfortable questions about the true nature of authenticity, the boundaries of personal loyalty, and whether it is truly possible to maintain an independent identity when your very name becomes linked to a legacy that polarizes millions of people across the globe. Before we delve deeper into this unfolding story of love, family dynamics, and the immense pressure of public expectation, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel so you never miss our deep dives into the stories shaping our culture. The story we are exploring today centers on a modern icon who found herself at the very epicenter of this cultural crossfire, a woman whose career was built on the foundation of the democratic, inclusive spirit of the creative industries, but whose private reality placed her at the literal dinner table of an empire built on entirely different foundations. For nearly a decade, the public has watched this fascinating juxtaposition play out, searching for any sign of compromise, any hint of internal conflict, or any public declaration that might resolve the inherent tension of her unique position. The fascination lies not just in the celebrity gossip itself, but in what this situation reveals about our collective obsession with consistency, accountability, and the unspoken rules of modern public life. We live in an era where individuals are increasingly defined by the company they keep, where guilt by association is a powerful force in the court of public opinion, and where the line between personal affection and ideological alignment has become almost completely erased. For a supermodel who has spent her entire adult life navigating the intense, unforgiving spotlight of the global media, the challenge has not merely been about maintaining her status at the pinnacle of the fashion hierarchy, but about defending the integrity of her own soul against the overwhelming weight of a family legacy she did not inherit by birth, but embraced through marriage. As the years have progressed, the whispers in the industry have grown into loud, inescapable public debates, forcing a re-examination of what it truly means to stay true to oneself when the entire world is watching, waiting, and judging every single word, gesture, and silence. This is a narrative about the invisible boundaries that separate our public pronouncements from our private devotions, and how the choices made in the name of love can echo far beyond the walls of a private residence, becoming a mirror for the deepest anxieties, divisions, and debates of our time. The delicate balance that had been maintained for years in the public eye began to experience significant tremors as the private decisions of supermodel Karlie Kloss became permanently intertwined with one of the most visible and heavily scrutinized families in modern history. The year was 2018 when Karlie officially tied the knot with her longtime partner, Joshua Kushner, a prominent venture capitalist. Under normal circumstances, the marriage of a world-famous model and a successful investor would simply be celebrated as a fairy tale union of wealth, beauty, and influence within the elite social circles of New York and international high society. However, the context surrounding this particular union was anything but ordinary. Joshua's older brother is Jared Kushner, a man who occupied a central, highly influential position as a senior advisor in the West Wing and who was married to Ivanka Trump. By entering into this marriage, Karlie was not just choosing a partner, she was inadvertently stepping into a complex web of modern power dynamics that placed her just 1 degree of separation away from the very center of global attention. Almost immediately, the public and the media began to view her through this new lens, looking for any indication of how she would navigate the vast ideological divide between her own established identity and the actions of the family she had just officially joined. Recognizing the growing curiosity and the potential for misinterpretation, Karlie attempted to draw a clear line in the sand during a highly publicized interview with Vogue magazine in the very same year they wed. In that conversation, she sought to reassure her massive global following by explicitly stating that she and Joshua shared a lot of the same liberal values, emphasizing that these progressive principles were what truly guided their life choices and the things that they chose to stand for as a couple. This statement was a deliberate effort to separate her husband, and by extension herself, from the prevailing ethos of the broader family dynasty, attempting to convince a skeptical public that love and shared personal ethics could exist independently of family ties. Yet the court of public opinion is rarely satisfied with simple delineations, and as the months rolled on, the tension only intensified. By the time 2020 arrived, a year defined by unprecedented global challenges and heightened social awareness, the pressure had reached a point where Karlie felt compelled to open up even further about the internal realities of her marriage. Appearing on Diane von Furstenberg's popular podcast, In Charge with DVF, she spoke candidly about the profound complications that naturally surrounded her husband's family connections. In a moment of vulnerability that resonated deeply with listeners, she explained that she had really followed her heart when making the conscious choice to be with the person she loved, completely despite any of the massive complications that inevitably came along with that decision. She made it clear to the audience that she knew, within her own core, that their relationship and their shared life were entirely worth fighting for, regardless of the public storm raging outside their door. This admission offered a rare glimpse into the heavy emotional toll of living in a state of constant justification, revealing that the glitz and glamour of her public life provided absolutely no protection against the deeply personal challenges of navigating family politics. Fast forward to the current landscape, and the conversation surrounding Karlie and her husband's political alignment has once again been pushed to the forefront of cultural discourse. During an in-depth conversation with Bloomberg Originals on July 1, Karlie found herself addressing these persistent questions with a renewed sense of self-assurance. Yet the core conflict remained as palpable as ever. She firmly stated to the interviewer that she knows exactly who she is, that she knows the fundamental values that guide her daily life, and that she remains deeply committed to the specific issues she cares about. She insisted that she has never lost sight of her own identity, but she also acknowledged the unchangeable reality of the situation by adding the crucial caveat that, at the end of the day, it is still her husband's family. In an effort to put certain rumors to rest, she explicitly clarified that she has never actually met Donald Trump, presenting herself as someone who is merely an outside observer to the grand theater of power, rather than an active participant. She went on to explain that she has become thoroughly accustomed to the delicate art of navigating profound ideological differences whenever she spends time with her brother-in-law's family. To illustrate her point, she noted that they were speaking in her hometown of St. Louis, Missouri, which she poetically described as a blue dot sitting inside a vast red state. According to Karlie, growing up in such an environment meant that for as long as she could possibly remember, she had always been exposed to a wide variety of differing viewpoints. A formative experience that she believes ultimately trained her for the unique life she leads today. She boldly declared her identity as a Democrat, while simultaneously asserting her firm belief that it is entirely possible to maintain meaningful, loving relationships with people whom you do not politically align with on every issue. She reminded the audience that this nation has historically always been envisioned as a place for open dialogue, concluding that people must fundamentally be able to talk to each other if society is to function. However, the moment this interview was broadcast to the world, the reaction from the public was swift, massive, and overwhelmingly critical. Instead of accepting her words as a message of mature tolerance and unity, an immense number of commentators across major digital platforms like Reddit and Instagram fiercely disagreed with her perspective. The internet became a battleground of interpretation, where everyday individuals dissected her statements with surgical precision. One top comment, which quickly garnered thousands of likes, offered a biting translation of her remarks, suggesting that extreme wealth essentially provides a protective shield, allowing privileged individuals to discuss critical matters respectfully because they never have to experience the actual emotional weight or real-world consequences of the topics they are debating. The public backlash highlighted a profound disconnect between the supermodel's idealized vision of civil discourse and the raw, lived realities of the people commenting online. Another highly visible critic wrote with intense fervor, arguing that if Karlie is not actively having the tough, uncomfortable conversations with that family, then she is 100% complicit in everything they represent, serving as a pillar of their social foundation while showing zero remorse or true understanding of the severe impacts associated with their legacy. The online community refused to view the situation as a mere difference of opinion, with one analytical Reddit user pointing out that when wealthy elites use the phrase differing politics, they are often minimizing issues that are actually deeply rooted in fundamental morality and worldviews. The user argued that politics is not a trivial disagreement over minor public policies like school vouchers or the privatization of Social Security. Rather, it represents a detailed map of a person's character and dictates how they interact with society and the vulnerable people around them. Concluding that family ties cannot simply absolve someone from the ethical implications of the company they choose to keep. The fierce and unrelenting public backlash to Karlie Kloss's recent statements highlights a much deeper, more profound shift in how modern society views the intersection of celebrity, privilege, and personal accountability. For a long time, public figures were able to compartmentalize their lives, maintaining a strict separation between their professional endeavors, their personal relationships, and their ideological beliefs. But we are now living in a radically transformed cultural landscape where everything is viewed as interconnected and where silence or neutrality is frequently interpreted as a deliberate form of agreement. The controversy surrounding Karlie is not merely an isolated incident of internet drama, it serves as a powerful case study in the modern condition, illustrating the intense friction that occurs when the rarefied, heavily insulated world of elite high fashion collides with the raw, deeply felt realities of the general public. To fully understand how Karlie arrived at this complex cultural crossroads, it is necessary to examine the incredible journey that brought her to the pinnacle of global fame. Born in Chicago and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, Karlie's rise to become one of the world's most recognizable supermodels was nothing short of meteoric. Discovered at a local charity fashion show at a young age, she possessed a unique, commanding runway walk and a striking physical presence that instantly captured the imagination of the world's most prestigious designers. Within a remarkably short period, she was opening and closing shows for the most legendary fashion houses in Paris, Milan, and New York, appearing on dozens of international Vogue covers, and becoming the face of multi-million-dollar global beauty campaigns. Yet, unlike many of her peers who defined themselves solely by their work within the fashion industry, Karlie consistently sought to build a legacy that extended far beyond the runway. She recognized the immense power of her platform and chose to use it to champion causes that felt authentic to her own values. One of her most notable achievements was the creation of a nonprofit organization designed to empower young women by teaching them how to code, bridging the massive gender gap in the technology sector and providing educational opportunities to thousands of girls across the United States. This initiative earned her widespread praise, solidifying her public reputation as a progressive, forward-thinking, and socially conscious role model for a new generation. It was this meticulously constructed public identity that made her marriage into a highly controversial dynasty so shocking and difficult to digest for her millions of devoted followers. Joshua Kushner, the man she chose to build her life with, was himself an intriguing figure who navigated a distinct path from his family. As a highly successful venture capitalist and the founder of a major investment firm, Joshua built an independent empire focused on technology, healthcare, and insurance innovation. Throughout his career, he quietly maintained a public distance from the political activities of his older brother, choosing instead to focus on the rapidly evolving world of business and technology startups. Friends and associates frequently described him as a deeply thoughtful private individual who did not share the same worldview as the rest of his family members, a sentiment that Karlie echoed when she first spoke of their shared liberal ideals. For years, the young couple seemed to believe that their individual success, combined with their quiet philanthropy and public adherence to progressive social causes, would be enough to shield them from the storm. They hoped the public would see them as separate entities, judge them solely on their own merits, and respect the ancient boundary between familial obligation and personal choice. But as the digital age progressed, the public's willingness to grant that separation began to rapidly erode. The intense reaction to Karlie's Bloomberg interview reveals that for a large segment of the population, the idea of maintaining polite, comfortable relationships with individuals who hold massive societal influence is no longer seen as a sign of maturity or tolerance. Instead, it is increasingly viewed as a profound moral compromise that is only made possible by the immense cushion of extreme wealth. The commentators who flooded her social media profiles were pointing out a stark reality. When you possess billions of dollars, the decisions made by the powerful rarely impact your daily survival, your personal freedom, or your economic security. For the wealthy, differing viewpoints can easily be reduced to polite dinner table debates, whereas for the average citizen, those same viewpoints represent policies that directly affect their healthcare, their human rights, and their fundamental well-being. This is the core of the anger directed at the supermodel. The public feels a deep sense of betrayal when an icon who built her brand on empowerment and progressive ideals appears to normalize or minimize the profound ethical questions surrounding her extended family. The story of Karlie Kloss and Joshua Kushner ultimately serves as a poignant reminder that in our modern hyper-connected world, no amount of fame, beauty, or financial success can truly insulate an individual from the heavy burden of public scrutiny. It forces us to ask whether it is truly possible to remain untouched by the legacy of the people we choose to surround ourselves with, and whether love can ever be entirely separated from the broader social context in which it exists. As Karlie continues to navigate her high-profile career, her philanthropic initiatives, and her complex family dynamics, she remains a fascinating symbol of a society deeply divided, a world where every personal choice is heavily scrutinized, and where the boundaries of loyalty, family, and public